Do you remember this commercial?
Hi. For this CD, I'd like to start off with Liz, Polyester Bride, then De La Soul doing Ooh.
You must mean the land of ooh, 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 ooh.
That's right.
This was part of a campaign from Apple just hot off the release of their brand new music software, iTunes. It highlighted the ability to take songs from a whole swath of artists and mix them into something new and personal.
It's your music burning on a Mac.
In other words, Apple was pitching the value of playlists. In the years since, playlists have become a, if not the, primary form of music listening. So why? How have they grown so much? What does that say about the state of music, and what can we learn from it all? Well, I've got a few ideas. So what is a playlist? A type of bread? The earliest sighting of what we could reasonably call a playlist was in the 1950s. Record labels would release samplers in an attempt to promote artists who might not yet have enough attention to stand out on their own. The real advent of playlists, though, was radio. DJs would compile songs together based on the genre or format of their station. In fact, some, like John Peel, became well known for their curation skills. It wasn't until the 70s and 80s when that same ability to curate was given to users. With a cassette deck, 2 cassette tapes, and what 9 out of 10 doctors would call gumption, you could record your own mix onto a tape. I believe historians called this a mixtape. That same concept behind the mixtape would be refined and made easier as the decades passed. You could burn mixtapes onto CDs, you could download songs individually and make your playlists. And these days you can just add songs to a playlist on Spotify or your given streaming service of choice. So no matter the time or format, the playlist is a selection of songs with some intention behind its curation. It could be just a bunch of songs that you like, it could be a gift to your crush, it could be what you work out to, or it could be the perfect party soundtrack. In today's music landscape, the playlist can be split into 2 different categories: algorithm curated and user curated. An example of an algorithm curated playlist would be Spotify's Discover Weekly, which updates once a week to provide users with songs that they may enjoy based on their listening history. I've seen a bunch of people say this one feature alone is what pushes Spotify past other streaming services. You spend your whole week listening to Eiffel 65, and Spotify gives you a whole playlist with Eiffels 1 through 64. What else could you ask for? User-curated playlists can run the gamut from your own personal mixes, the ones made by curators working at publications, or even the streaming services themselves. You got ones made by celebrities and tastemakers. You got playlists out here like How to Order a Pizza and Radiohead Tries to Do Math. I think one of the biggest boons for playlists in recent memory is that personalized factor, how it's become a new way for people to express themselves, which is, I suppose, what a playlist had always been, a way of collecting and rearranging songs that, if done correctly, can create some new meaning from their combination. I think that's primarily why, according to one survey, playlists have become more popular of a listening format than albums. But that's not the only reason I'm interested in them. For one, I started a bakery back when I thought playlists were still bread, and I need to convince a whole lot of people that they can somehow eat hyperpop. But there's also larger forces at play that I think are worth exploring. Let's revisit that Apple commercial, more specifically that final line.
It's your music burning on a Mac.
One of the most brilliant things that the Apple of the 2000s ever did was frame the, quote, ownership of music towards the user. They realized that after Napster obliterated the perceived worth of music, the traditional model of distribution was never going to be the same. So instead of fighting against unstoppable tides, they leaned into what consumers wanted, an easy, tech-literate way to listen to music while providing a legal alternative to piracy. You know what else was conceived as a solution to piracy? Spotify. And sure, yeah, it did, as experts say, work. Spotify is huge, and streaming music is huge-er. But whether tech companies want to admit it or not, the algorithms in place play a major role in what we listen to. Some, like an executive in this Guardian piece, say that people let playlists run on in the background when they serve inoffensive, bland music they can't be bothered to turn off. Now, granted, it would depend on the situation. I'm not going to play Death Grips at my grandma's next birthday party, because all she listens to is 100 gecs. But that's a fair point, and it feeds into what seems to be tech's overarching goal to expand from simply music to audio. Spotify outright said as much recently, as they've stepped up their podcast game with multi-million-dollar deals. These apps want you to spend as much time as possible on them so they can hit you with subscription fees or advertisements so they can make money. This is not to say no one at these companies likes to boogie to the powers that be, or no one would recommend a boundary-pushing artist, but their objective seems to be to create the soundtrack of your day, make you feel like the main character, set the vibe. This also feeds into the democratization of recording gear and equipment. Anyone with a vision and a cracked copy of Logic can make music in their bedroom, which is why we've seen a sizable increase in music made in people's bedrooms. And of course, there's the massive elephant in the room when it comes to payment. Every streaming service has come under scrutiny for what they pay artists per stream. Hopefully that will change sooner rather than later, but it's already affected the general layout of the music economy, creating a situation where only the tip of the top musicians can earn a living from streaming. I think the larger concerns at play here are A, the increasing influence that tech has in our lives, which is not unique to music in any way, but also B, this idea that music is shifting away from the artist/industry and towards the user. Is that a bad thing? Not if you're a user. The rise in streaming has given a spotlight to artists who might not have gotten it with the old distribution model, but like that old model, there are winners and losers in this new music economy. So do we blame people's attention spans? Look out your front window and hey, there's a story about people's attention spans decreasing. But that's not really the full picture. Long story short, the figure most people point to is a citation from a Microsoft survey, and the source of that citation is fairly vague, but there's another study from Denmark that says the same thing, and there are also studies that show that our attention spans aren't shortening, they're adapting. I'm nowhere near the first person to make this point, but the internet plays a bigger part of our lives with each passing year, and the onslaught of to sift through means we have less time and energy to devote to one singular thing. And when it comes to music, having a selection of songs to check out can be a better fit for your life than just one album by one artist. Heck, you might even look to someone to sift through it all and find the best pieces so that you can focus on other things. Does that mean that long-form listening experiences like the album are dead? I don't think so. Artists are still putting out albums, and every so often one becomes the hot topic of discussion for a good while. Also, it's worth mentioning that discussion about music formats changing and how that actually changes music itself have been a thing ever since music was first recorded. Heck, albums really only became an artistic avenue for musicians in the 60s, which syncs up nicely with when radio DJs became more prominent. This has been going on ever since wax cylinders and vinyl discs incentivized musicians to write shorter songs. I actually touched on this in a video way back in the day when I didn't know how to light or edit or write. Oh god, please don't watch it. Now, it's probably too early to see the full ramifications, but I think this rise in playlists is a similar shift. We've already seen how streaming has changed how songs are written and constructed. Why couldn't that same change happen with the way we listen to music too? To be clear, that doesn't mean these changes should go completely uncriticized. The conversation about streaming payouts, for example, has sadly been ongoing for years, and if I have to sell all my possessions to make a dent in that conversation, then dang it, I will. But there's also an emotional consequence. As this Vox article says, playlists don't lend themselves to strong bonds between artists and fans. You don't remember the one excellent pancake you had, you remember the smorgasbord of food that was stuffed down your gullet. Of course, some artists manage to push through and connect with audiences, but they often have to do more than just make music. They have to understand social media, create compelling stories in a matter of seconds, and be some degree of insanely lucky. What happens from here could be really interesting. Do playlist makers and curators become a major player in that artist-fan dynamic? Similar to radio DJs like John Peel or music critics like Fantano?
I'm always saying this.
Could artists start framing projects as playlists, a la what Drake did with More Life in 2017? Would we get dreadfully long playlists meant to bombard streaming charts for a week, a la Culture 2? Are there possibilities for artists to use that framing to enhance their artistic message? Will we see more things like the new Billie Eilish album, for example, being split into different types of listening experiences? Will labels try to influence playlists by paying extra to have their songs placed, similar to payola practices in the early 60s? Well, apparently they're already doing that. But the point is, the shift has already started, and it's only going to continue from here. And sure, there are people out there who have and will bemoan this shift. Liking albums or preferring a long-form experience is certainly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you know some people out there will tie that to the lost art of music and how you're supposed to sit with music. And it's all because of these damn Gen Zers and millennials and whatever the hell a chuggy is. This might be an extreme example, but look at opera. Operas are these gorgeous spectacles that depict stories of loss and love, and the biggest rule to seeing one is that you sit down, shut up, and give your full attention to it. That's the way it's been for hundreds of years. But it wasn't always like that. If you were to skip over to Italy or France during the late 18th century, you'd find that audiences weren't nearly as restrained as they are now. They would treat the performance like we do a baseball game or a music festival, and it was only over time that audiences started to become quieter and more focused. So if opera of all things can change, who's to say anything in music can't? Let me offer this. The beauty of music, the real beauty of music, is that it can be whatever you want it to be. It can sit in the background of a party, it can help you express yourself or connect with someone else, it can be a source of remarkable catharsis with hundreds, it can be a way to focus on work, and it can provide a thoughtful conduit into an artist's mind. To prefer one use for music over others is more than fine, but dismissing a certain use for music, or dismissing a person for using music in a certain way, feels narrow-minded. Because at the end of the day, the specifics of music don't really matter. It's the emotion that matters. That's what you'll remember, and everything else, chords, melody, production, release format, is there to serve the emotion. So, with all that in mind, let's make one. I've been talking about playlists this whole time. I should be at least able to put my subscription fee money where my mouth is. To help, let's use this New York Times article on how to make the perfect playlist. First, we need to pick a theme. Why not romance? I want to make a playlist of romantic songs for someone who loves Crazy Frog and failed bakeries as much as I do. The article also says to take into consideration if the playlist has a specific order or if it can be put on shuffle. For me, I'll make an order, but if this theoretical construct of a girl does hit shuffle, I'll only lose a piece of my self-worth. So what song should I start with that best represents me? Yeah, it's only fair. Honesty is the best practice in any relationship, which is why I'm showing her up front that I am a member of the Church of the Sax Line and Run Away With Me. After that explosive perfection, let's bring things down a bit. Wolfpack's Back Pocket. It's playful, innocent, and a bit sardonic. Girls like it when your songs have a sense of humor, and a clarinet trio. Let's get some smackers on the board. Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Sufjan Stevens, Mystery of Love. It's me. My Girl. This next section is the art pop triple whammy. Kate Bush, Hounds of Love. You take my shoes off and throw them away. Next is Björk's Yoga. It's really about a close personal friend, but it's got that grand sweeping emotion that's key to any great love song. I was gonna close this trio with Radiohead's All I Need, which is a gorgeous song, but I don't know if that would send the wrong message. It would totally depend on the person and if they're already a Radiohead fan or not, but I don't know, I feel like some people might not vibe with being told that I'm the animal trapped in their hot car. Instead, let's go with Natalie Prass's It Is You. All the answers of the world, they need a reason. To bring things back up, Stevie Wonder's For Once in My Life, one of my favorite tracks by him, with an all-timer bass line from James Jamerson. Someone born like you would have made my dreams come true, yeah. Golden Hour by Casey Musgraves. You set my world on fire. Little Death by the Beths. Sunflower Volume 6 by Harry Styles. Talk to you. Sunflower. Next. Look, if it's good enough for them to play at every event they've done this year, it's good enough for me. Though their newly released Skate would also suffice. Mirror Ball by Elbow. Everything has changed. So Hot You're Hurting My Feelings by Caroline Polachek. Light a Roman Candle With Me from Fun's first album. Just a lazy evening that you could be leaving all week, stay and talk it till 3. Can't Do Without You by Caribou. Alright, that's a lot of songs. Let's go on a quick hiatus. Coyote, Nakamura with Q-Tip. That's right, I did it. Yeah, sweet, you and I. James Blake's I'll Come To. I could get there too. I'm gonna say what I need. If it's the last thing I do. How Do I Know from Here We Go Magic. This one's actually a personal favorite of mine. A throwback to 2012 with a great dynamic build. So how do I know? How do I know? How do I know? All right, we're nearing the end. We gotta bring this one home strong. I wanted to throw Frank Ocean's cover of Aaliyah's At Your Best on here, but Endless isn't on Spotify. What can I substitute it with? Oh wait, I can just put in Aaliyah's At Your Best.
But at your best, you are love.
Next, the Beach Boys' God Only Knows, one of the great love songs of its time. Kind of amazing that Brian Wilson and a bunch of pets made this.
God only knows what I feel. God only knows.
And finally, I want something that not only closes this playlist out, but leaves the listener wanting more. And I think I'll go with D'Angelo's Untitled How Does It Feel? 20 million musician points for D'Angelo. And that should do it. About 90 minutes of great love songs, both old and new. I've left this playlist in the description if you want to check it out, and feel free to tell me if there's any song that you would have thrown on here. Oh, sorry, I just realized that I forgot to put on the greatest love song of all time on here. Crazy Frog's Hey Baby.